Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Techie Kumar. Today we are going to start a new tutorial on Spring WebFlux. This is one of the very interesting model for me that I want to share with you. So let's start the Spring WebFlux model tutorial. Before getting into the WebFlux, we need to understand what is reactive programming. After having that concept, then only we can jump on the Spring WebFlux. And this is the introduction video, so I'm just going to talk about the basics of Spring WebFlux and maybe in very short, and I will show you a demo how it works, and I will discuss about the blocking approach and non-blocking approach while writing REST APIs or developing a website. So let's get into the notepad. So instead of notepad, I have opened OneNote, which I like it to work with. So let's consider one example to understand this blocking technique and non-blocking technique. And non-blocking technique is nothing but reactive programming. So let's take an example. Let's say we have a cafe, and this cafe has 5 chefs and 1 manager. The job of manager is just to pass the order request to chef so that they can create. So let's say the first user arrived. This is the first user. Okay, we can say like user 1. User places an order, then manager passes it to the chef, okay, in the kitchen. So because there is one order, so one of the chef comes in action. Let's say make it as 1, and it will start preparing the order. Another user arrived, U2. He again places the order, and now this is the second order. Manager passes it to chef. So another chef comes in action and start working on order 2. Similarly, so there were 5 customers, and so 5 orders. So all 5 chefs were busy with these orders. After some time, there are 5 users and there are 5 orders, and all chefs were busy with these orders. Now the next user came. He places his order, but this time manager didn't pass that request to chef because no chef is available to create this order. So that's the reason manager cannot take this order. So that's why manager will not take the order. Manager will decline this order. So this is called blocking approach, where we are blocking the user from placing the order if there are no chef available. So if there is no capacity to entertain the upcoming orders, so the technique is block the users to place any orders further. So this blocking technique is being used in Spring MVC, where if users are making requests and server is not able to entertain the request, then in that case the request would be in waiting state for some time, and then after it will be declined. Another technique is non-blocking technique. In this technique, manager is not going to decline the request or the order. Manager is going to take the order, keep with them, and once one of the chef is available, assign it to one of the chef, and once the order is ready, then the manager will notify the user, and in that case user will not be in waiting state. So this non-blocking technique will not block the users. So here if I try to explain, if we go with non-blocking technique, then users can come and places their order and sit back, relax. I mean, manager will see the availability of the chefs and assign the order to them, and once the order is completed, then the user will be notified. So these two are example of non-blocking technique. Let's get into our code lab. So here is the small Spring WebFlux project where I have created very few endpoints to just show you how this Spring WebFlux works, and in upcoming videos we will start working on basic terminologies, basic the way we can write controllers, services, and maybe later we will develop a full-fledged REST API, authentication, everything I will add to this playlist. Okay, one more thing I want to add here, don't worry about this code. This code is already posted on GitHub. It is available there. I will share the link in the description of this video. So let me show you the pom.xml. As a dependency, I have added WebFlux instead of starter web. In Spring MVC, we use starter web. Here we need to use a Spring Boot starter WebFlux. Okay, so WebFlux and other dependencies are optional. If you want to use Lombok, you can go with that. These are the test, and this were reactive test, right? And this dev tools I have added to just avoid manual building and running the project whenever I do some changes. So this is about the pom.xml. Now let's see what is inside this source main Java. So I have created handler, I have created router. So guys, we will discuss about this in detail in upcoming videos, what is a router, handler, what it does. But as of now, just consider them as a controller. Router are nothing, they are controllers. The way you write REST controllers in your REST APIs using Spring MVC, these are the same thing. We have entity that you are already aware. I have created one entity called user, where I have captured the first name, last name, and contact number, and I have created this. I will also call it as controller so that you will be comfortable. So this controller will have 3 endpoints, actually 4. So this is the welcome API. This API adds user to this list. I have created a list of user here, and another one is for just to get these users, and this one is to get the data as a you can say like from a flux. Like, so whenever we are getting data from flux, so it will keep pushing data to you until data is available inside the flux. So what I'm trying to say here, flux is nothing, just you can say that this is a pipe where we are having data. So let's say we have data D1, D2, D3 and D4. These data will keep flowing outward when the client calls the API. And once the data are consumed, I mean, let's say first D4 is consumed, D3, D2 and D1. Once all the data are consumed, then this flux would be empty and the task would be done. And if there is a stream, like from one side data is coming, so that will keep streaming that data to the client. Okay, so as long as data is there in the flux in this pipe, right, just consider this as a pipe. As long as, or you can call it as a box, as long as data is inside this pipe, you will get data on your client screen, right? So here I have created two get where we are using flux, and one post where we are using mono. So what is mono and flux? So I'll give just one line definition. Mono is like a single entity. When we talk about mono, it means we are talking about a single entity. When we are talking about flux, we are talking about a group of multiple entities. And these entities, like what I just now explained about the pipe, right? So these are like flux is like group of data. Got it? And mono is a single entity. So whenever we have to send one entity as a response, we always use mono, and when we have to send a group of data, we use flux. So there are only two return type, that is mono and flux, in case of Spring WebFlux. Okay, we will talk this in detail. So now let's test this application, how it's working. So to test this application, we'll go to browser. In here we will type localhost, and then it would be 8080/API/welcome. If I hit this, I could see the response from the application. So we have one controller endpoint. This is the endpoint of a controller of get, and we are returning this data. Now let's test the another endpoint where we are going to add users. So we can minimize this. Okay, so now we have two screens here. So let's open Insomnia. I have been using this REST client to test my application instead of using Postman. I feel this is very lightweight, and so let's create one. I have created one user. I can make it like Tom1, Clar1. This is another user. Let's create Tom2, Tom3. This is another user, just to see the difference of the input data. So now we are having 3 users, and we got a message user added successfully. So you can see this is the endpoint, and inside that we have a action. You can call it as a service in terms of Spring MVC, where we call a service layer and we fetch the data. So here these are called as handler function. So again, this also we will discuss in the upcoming videos. So just consider this as a service which is returning the data. So this add user method I have created here, which which does the same thing, which added the user, create new user what we are receiving in the post, and added that user in the list. Here we are adding that user inside the list. Okay, so now we have added 3 users in the list. Now let's test the next API, which is going to return the flux. As of now we returned only mono. Okay, so here also you can see we have returned mono. Okay, so now we are going to call an API which is going to return flux. So this is the API/API users, and this is the get user method. If you go to get user method, we are using users, and users is nothing but a flux. So when we are returning mono, it means that we are returning one response, but that response will have flux as an data. Okay, here also when I'm returning one response, I'm returning a single response, but that response is having a single data, that is mono. Okay, that's the thing. So now let's test this. So if I go here and instead of welcome, if I type users and hit enter, so you can see like, okay, so we received the data. You can see little delay in the response. Let me reload this page again. So if I reload this page, you can see we are getting data with some delay. So you can assume this scenario with like, you are reading data from a downstream application. When I say downstream application, maybe some other application. So they publish their APIs and we consume them. So that takes time, right? We cannot assume like when we are going to hit the server, we will get the response immediately. So there would be a delay. So this entire implementation works on PubSub model. I will discuss about this in detail in the next video. Okay, so now we tested this users. Let's go to the next API, which is API/stream. This API returns a flux, and what it does, it just returns a data. Okay, count from 0 to 100, and this takes a delay of 1 second. We can go with the delay of millisecond to make it more real time. So let's make it of maybe 200, or maybe you can make it 500 half seconds, so that would be more. So let's save this. It will reload the application again. So now I'm going to check the stream. Okay, so if I hit this request goes to server, and it will just subscribe that, and task is done. Okay, then the server will publish to their subscribers. Okay, let me put in a simple words. This PubSub model maybe seems very confusing for you, so please don't worry. If you guys have worked on Angular, maybe you are already familiar with this, but if you have not, so don't worry. In upcoming videos we will discuss in these things in detail. So this is just the introduction video of this playlist. So be with me, and you are going to learn a lot in this tutorial. So let's hit this API. So you can see that, right? I have hit the endpoint and I have got the status 200. It means that I'm not waiting for the response. The request is completed, because this request is just subscribed the publisher. Now it's job of publishers to just publish the data. Now publisher is publishing data to me. Okay, if I open another browser, let's say keep it here, and if I just copy it, meanwhile it's coming doing here, if I hit enter here as well, so you can see that it's publishing data to 2 places. So all the clients who are consuming it, they are getting data. So you can see this task is completed. When we get the status, when the request is completed, now the status is completed and we have 200. Okay, but this data is being received from the publisher. Okay, so let me go here. So this is about how WebFlux works, and how we can get data in real time instead of blocking the request. That's what about Spring WebFlux, and this brings me to the end of this video. I hope you liked this video. If you really liked it, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.